Hi everyone, this is Killshot from 99 Gaming, and this is The Walking Dead Season 7 Negan murder scene. So in a video I did a couple days back, I actually read through what could have been a possible leaked script, and several people commented that while I was reading that, they were closing their eyes and just trying to envision everything that was going on. So what I decided to do is try to recreate that with some different images and make it a little bit easier. Hopefully it'll desensitize people to what we may witness coming up in the next couple days. This video will contain predictions from multiple theories over the last 6 months. The primary storyline is created from a post by Rocket Dog. Some images have been substituted to recreate the episode. So the episode will supposedly start in with a sneak peek from Right Hand Man, where Negan leads in and says, "Was the joke that bad?" Now, unbeknownst to the audience at this point, two people have already died. Rick mumbles to Negan, "I'm going to kill you. Not today, not tomorrow." As Negan looks deep into Rick, he can see he's still not broken. So he's still pulling out the tricks. He pulls out the bat, shows him the blood, and then he starts to talk about Right Hand Man and, one of those people still breathing, potentially your right hand man. The language here insinuates that multiple people have died, but from an audience standpoint, we don't know that. The important thing with this scene is Negan keeps looking deep into Rick's eyes. He shows him the bat, and then he looks at him. He makes a comment, and he looks at him. He's looking for any clue that Rick is broken, and he hasn't gotten him to the point that he needs to get him to just yet. So he talks about his weapon. He said, "What'd he have? A hatchet?" And then at that point, you can see the seriousness go over Negan's face, and then it's off to the RV. So he picks Rick up, drags him over to the RV. At 3:10 in a sneak peek, you hear a voice. Could be Michonne's voice. No, no, don't. And of course, the camera does pan back, and we get to see a little bit of remains. And at that point, we know Rick has already witnessed this happening, but the joyride is really about to begin. So once they get inside the RV, apparently Negan takes Rick's axe and then slams it into the table. He gives Rick an alternative and says, "Come get me." Rick doesn't hesitate. He goes after the axe. He's got Negan alone. This is his opportunity. And as he goes for the axe, Negan pulls out a gun and settles Rick down all over again. So they drive the RV and they get to the spot where the logs were on fire. Negan opens the door, takes Rick's axe, and then tosses the axe outside onto the ground. We've seen multiple images of this from the AMC site as well. You can see the axe is clean at this point. Once they get to the area where the burning logs are, there's a lot more smoke here. The hanging man is still there, and then the walkers have just started to accumulate. So Negan almost planned this out probably well in advance that this was going to happen. Keep in mind, that was at night, so we're probably getting a little bit of daybreak at this point. Rick is fighting off walkers. Still a little bit of twilight. Rick manages to get to a safe spot, at least temporarily, and that's where some of the flashbacks and the dream sequences start to occur. So with the first flashback is Rick envisioning this garden party, or all is well in the safe zone in Alexandria. He starts to think about his friends and all the moments they had and how much they mean to each other as they're gradually going through each person within the lineup. As Rick continues to remember all of these great moments, the walkers continue to accumulate, and then the cold hard reality of what he just witnessed a short time ago sets in. The camera goes back to Negan and the lineup and him making his selection. So you are it, and the audience finds out that it was Abraham that was chosen. Probably the audience as well as the group is okay with Abraham's selection. I mean, Abraham bucked up. Abraham was prepared to go. No one interrupted. It had to be this way. One person was going to die in order to pay the price for Negan. The first swing takes place, and you can hear Negan tell Abraham, "Taking it like a champ." But Abraham is not one to let Negan get the last word in. You can take your choice from a whole list of potential Abe-isms, but apparently Abe does not fight back, but he does get the last word in. And then shortly after, Negan continues his assault and beats Abraham to death. And just as a reminder, here's a theory I talked about some time ago where I speculated this was Abraham's boot, and I think Eugene will take this and try to grow the grain in order to make the bullets. It'll serve as a practical purpose and also a monument to Abraham. Shortly after Abraham's death, I think Negan is probably content, but he wants to get one last reassurance that the group is broken, even though the Saviors are very bloodthirsty. So he's going to take the bloody bat and just antagonize the group one more time. And this is where the plot really takes a turn for the worse. So Negan walks over to Rosita and shows her the bloody bat to see her reaction to it. Now, he probably doesn't know there was a former relationship, but this is a man that she still loves. Once this happens with Rosita, I think Daryl begins to fume, and he doesn't trust Negan. They thought the deal was one person would die, and now that he's pointing the bat at people, they don't know what's going to happen. Daryl did not jump in to save Abraham, but he's not about to let it happen to Rosita. Even though Daryl's weak, he takes his last little bit of energy. He lunges at Negan, and in the process, the blanket falls off. I now understand why Daryl did what he did. I had some hard feelings at first, but then, when he's pointing the bat in the face of people, you don't know what's going to happen next, and it's either kill or be killed. Daryl's taken to the ground by the Saviors. They actually kick him, pull weapons on him, force him back into the lineup once again, and then Negan uses that as his platform, walks over to Daryl, points the bat, knowing that Daryl has a death wish, but instead of killing Daryl, he actually does something far, far worse, the psychological impact of killing one of his best friends. He switches the target and then proceeds to beat down Glenn. And as Negan winds back the bat and swings at Glenn, we hear a laugh from the trailer. You can hear Glenn attempting to grunt or say something, potentially Maggie, if that's the way it's going to play out. Negan continues his assault on Glenn. In between swings, he looks over at Maggie, apologizes that he has to do it. It has to be this way. We see some of the flashback scenes. We see some of the emotion. And at this point, I think as an audience, we realize we're not going to have this relationship any longer. We wanted to see this grow, and this is their last waning moments, and it's going to happen so fast. So those minutes that we thought we'd get just get torn down to seconds. At 24 seconds, we actually hear Maggie say Glenn, and I think that's going to be the iconic moment from the TV show, where in the comic it was Glenn trying to say Maggie, in the TV show it's Maggie actually saying Glenn. So back to the real time, back to the Walker scene. Rick is in trouble. Negan needs to get him back to the group. He pulls out the gun, starts shooting down walkers in an attempt to get Rick safely back in the RV so he can get back to the torture site. So once they're in the RV, Negan actually takes the luxury of cleaning Rick's axe off for him that is drenched in blood. And I thought this was such a great line from the trailer, a reminder. This is probably Cher speaking to Dwight. Whatever he's done to you, there's always more. So as Negan drives Rick back to the torture site, it's time to finally break Rick down, and he has to do it through Carl. He selects Carl, potentially looks like a third Lucille victim. He gives Rick the hatchet, and Simon marks on Carl's arm. Rick is going to have to cut off Carl's arm. He gives him to the count of 3, and 3, Rick is begging, pleading, take me instead of Carl. They get to 2. Carl accepts his fate. He's encouraging Rick, just do it. Let's make this end right now. And as Rick has no other option except to cut off the arm of his son, Negan actually steps in and puts a stop to it. He realizes that he has broken down the leader of this group. There's nothing else that needs to be done. Potentially it could have stopped earlier, or it may not have happened earlier, depending on how twisted Negan's overall plan was. So the aftermath, once Negan realizes that he's got Rick exactly where he wants him, they take Daryl as prisoner, and they will ship him back to the sanctuary. And once again, in sanctuary, this is a scene from AMC's site as well, too. This is where Daryl will be locked up and tortured. And then back to the group. So they actually leave them a truck. The truck is twofold. One, in a week, they're going to come by and pick up the supplies, so you load the truck up and we'll come by and get it. But the other purpose of the truck is to load the bodies of both Abraham and Glenn. So it'll be the final time that we actually get to see them. So once they're in the truck and they're making their way, the camera pans out. You'll see a little bit of the remains. As they begin to drive away, Rick looks into the rearview mirror and sees the walker that we saw in the trailer emerge from the woods and proceed to devour what is left of Glenn and Abraham, as a reminder to us all that no one in this show is safe. So I know this is a little bit of a recap from something that I read a couple days ago. Hopefully this will assist you a little bit more in seeing some of the visuals. Keep in mind, this is not 100% confirmed. It is just a very, very strong speculation that made a lot of sense to a lot of different people. We'll see how it all plays out. It seems very, very legitimate to me at this point, but I look forward to reading all of your comments below, all the interaction. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. My name is Killshot. Peace.